Hi, welcome to Midwest Magic Cleaning. My name is...
And my name is...
No, son of a bitch. Slap your own moose hat. Today we're going to be talking about something that I get comments a lot about, and that is the show Hoarders. We've got a lot of people who won't watch the show Hoarders because of the drama and the extreme emotional blast that happens on that show. And I don't want to per se to like defend it per se, but I want to explain why they do what they do in conjunction with what we do and what we deal with on a regular basis. So we're going to be talking about people with hoarding disorder and the extreme emotional trauma that they go through. We're going to be talking about the anger that they express, the manipulation that they have, the control issues that they have, and the parts that we don't put on our videos, but Hoarders did put on their show. So first of all, I want you to recognize that Hoarders is a TV show and it has to have ratings. So they don't just focus on the cleanups, they focus on the human attachment. And unfortunately, in order to get ratings, that show had to show a lot of the drama and the extreme explosions of anger that people had. And I don't disagree with them doing that, to be honest. I think that their show had focused a lot on showing the real side of hoarding disorder, because you can have a whole show of just cleaning stuff up. We do that all the time on ours, and our numbers at times are comparable to what the show Hoarders got on TV. We've got several videos with several million views on them. The problem with the show Hoarders is that it does unearth a really ugly side of hoarding disorder, and that unfortunately is something that we have to deal with behind the scenes. I've written a couple things down on my phone, so you're going to have to pardon me if I look on my phone because there's a lot to go over. But the first one I wanted to talk about is control issues. From the very beginning of connecting with somebody with hoarding disorder, there's a control issue involved that isn't often addressed with our videos and with really the mainstream psychology of hoarding disorder. From the get-go, we once had a guy where we went to his house and his son had been begging him to let us clean up his house for months. He finally gave in and said, yeah, this is beyond living. I mean, you couldn't walk through his house. And before we even entered the door, the guy immediately jumped up and said, now I want you guys to know something. You're coming in here thinking you're just going to take all my crap and throw it in a dumpster. And I'm telling you right now, that's not happening. Just like super assertive. And I let him get it out. And then I just had to explain to him, hey, our thing here isn't throwing your stuff away. We just want you to be able to walk in your house. And there's a geometry problem here. Your house is only so big. It only has so much cubic feet. And you've filled that with items so much that you can't exist in your own house. And I let him know this is hoarding disorder. Whether you want to admit this or not, this is 100% hoarding disorder. And you have to keep that in your brain. You have to keep that recognition going at all times, because there are going to be points where you're going to look around and say, I can't believe they threw this thing away. But you have to understand that in order for this to be livable, things have to be thrown away. So there's a really bad control issue in which if you throw things away without their permission, they're going to lose it. But you kind of have to trick them into thinking they're the ones that made the decision to throw things away. So it would be a case of running things by them and saying, what do you think of this? And it'll be, I don't know, a box of Tupperware. They've got 150 pieces of Tupperware in their house. And you're like, what about this box of Tupperware? And they'll say, no, I want to keep it. It's my Tupperware. I use it all the time. So then you'll have to use a little bit of finessing and logic to say, I totally get it. But You have 150 pieces of Tupperware, and the ones that I'm holding are saturated in mouse and roach poop, and plastic absorbs that stuff. You have not used these particular pieces of Tupperware in several years, and I can tell because I do this for a living, and eventually they'll be like, you know what, let's just throw those away. But at no point do I say we should throw these things away, because then I'm taking control from them. And one of the worst problems that you have with somebody with hoarding disorder is a massive control issue. And Jason, you tell them about the bowl that you found on top of the fridge.
There was like two instances. So we will start with the pink bowl. There was a pink bowl on the on the top of their refrigerator, and it's plastic. It was a big bowl, and it was just filled with rainwater. And like when you look at it, when you bring it down, you could see a dissolved rag in there. That it was apart, frayed. It was destroyed, and there was maggots and mold, and it just reeked. Like I was wearing that respirator, and I could smell it from time to time, just sneaking through. I threw that away, and like maybe a few hours later, she's like, "Where'd that pink bowl go?" Or she saw it out in the dumpster and was asking about it, and it's like it was just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it was putrid. Yeah. And she wanted the control to say if she would have said throw that thing away, it would have been totally fine. But because we did it without asking her, it became an issue. It was a minor issue, but it was an issue in her brain. And that's something we deal with a whole lot, where you'll see them as we're going through their stuff, they'll stop and start picking stuff up and say, oh, I want to keep this. I want to keep this. And it's the control of them saying, I don't want you to throw this away, so therefore I'm going to pick it up before you have a chance to touch it. But I wanted to start with control, because control is kind of the basis for all this stuff. The reason they haven't cleaned up their house until now is because people have tried to come in and clean for them and impede upon their control. That's why you can't just walk into a person who has hoarding disorder. You can't walk into their house and just start cleaning. You're immediately taking control away from them. And so with an average, everyday, normally thinking person, that wouldn't be an issue. It may irk you a little bit if somebody came into your house and started cleaning without your permission. But we're not talking about somebody with a neurotypical brain. We're talking about somebody with a disorder that is so powerful. You can compare it to hand washing in OCD, or an extreme case of hiccups that you can't get rid of, or Tourette's even. The difference is that you can come in and you can clean for somebody with hoarding disorder, but you can't get rid of the hoarding disorder itself. You can stop somebody with extreme OCD from washing their hands by turning the water off at the main. But the desire, the compulsion to still keep doing that is still there. And all it's doing is, because now, since they can't wash their hands, it's making their anxiety bigger and bigger and bigger, and it creates a paradox. The hand washing itself was a relief from the anxiety. And so if you take that ability away, now they don't have a healthy method of treating that anxiety, which causes more anxiety. And it just keeps building on itself until they have an emotional and mental breakdown. So it's the same thing with hoarding. They have a compulsion to hoard. They have a compulsion to control their environment, even if that control is sitting on the couch and watching TV and not touching the house itself to try to clean it up.
Let's give off that second example. We were throwing away a poker rug, and initially you had asked me to shake it out outside and bring it back in.
Oh, you're talking about the rug that had the poker stuff on it, like the cards and the...
Okay. Yeah, I was like, yeah.
It was a rug that had a print on it that made it look like a poker playing table, like a card table.
Yeah. And I went to go shake it outside, and the first thing she asked me is, what are you doing with it? I just said, like, I'm just shaking it out, bring it back in. And that's when her daughter was like, just throw it away. It's just covered, because you flip it over, you get to the bottom side of it, and it's just yellow all the way through. And I was just agreeing with her a little bit with that. Just just throw it away. And
Yeah,
she just kept trying to make up excuses like, oh, I could just wash it and leave it outside, and it's just, that's not going to work.
yeah, it's entirely soaked with cat and mouse urine, cat and mouse poop. It's destroyed to the point that no amount of washing is ever going to get it clean. Even if the cat and mouse poop wasn't on it, the sheer amount of dirt that was on it was unwashable. It would take the guys from like Mountain Rug Cleaning on YouTube to get it cleaned. It was really bad. And it was unhealthy. And we had decided we'll just shake it out and put it back because we don't want the conflict on this particular one item. We don't care. So the daughter making the decision took control away from the mom. And then the mom tried to defend it and say, well, we can wash it, we can do this with it, we can save it. And there's always that presence of intent that never gets realized. I intend to wash that to make it good, but she won't ever do that, because the truth is it's been in there for probably 10 or 15 years and it's never been washed. It's never going to be washed. It's just, and even if she wanted to, she couldn't do it. But there's always an excuse to try to save something in that, well, I can fix this, or I can use it to make this thing out of. I can make a quilt out of that old shirt. And it's like, you're never, ever going to make a quilt out of that shirt, ever. But the idea is there and they can't get past it. So sometimes you do have to steal control. There was one point in a couple of different houses where we ran into things that had embedded black mold in cloth, and that is a no-no. That's an automatic throw it away thing. And again, they were in both instances, they were like, I don't want to get rid of that. I just keep it all, fix it all, clean it. And we just finally had to say, I'm not allowing you to have this in your house. Sorry. You're on oxygen. You're trying to keep you're trying to keep objects that have black mold in it. Sorry, but this is no longer your decision. It's going in the dumpster. And sometimes you do have to put your foot down on that. It's why I like, from the show Hoarders, Matt Paxton and Corey Chalmers, and Dorothy sometimes does this, where they have to put their foot down and say, no, sorry, I can't let you keep this. I legally can't let you keep this. Otherwise, I'm endangering your life. And sometimes you just have to. Now, because of that, people have a real problem with blame. The people who have hoarding disorder have a real problem with blame. They don't want to be blamed for their house looking the way that it looks or is in the condition that it's in. And I think in most cases, on almost every house that we've ever done on the channel, the person with hoarding disorder will blame the kids, or they'll blame the pets, or they'll blame their ex, or they'll even blame somebody who died who can't even be there to defend themselves. And it'll be like, this house used to look pristine until my daughter moved out and left all of her stuff here, or until my husband and I got divorced and he left all his crap here. My mom died and I inherited all of her stuff. My cats tear up this room. That's why it looks the way that it looks. When you talk to the relatives, and the people who used to live there, they're like, no, this has looked this way since I was a kid. They're trying to ease judgment from us. The one thing that they really don't like, aside from taking accountability and saying, this is my fault, I got this into this condition, the thing that they don't like even above that is for us to look at them as if they did something wrong. They desperately do not want us to think they're bad people. And so they will make up any excuse and outright lie about how the house got into that condition. They will lie about how their plumbing got shut off or how their toilet stopped working. They'll lie about why they still have food that is 20 years old in their refrigerator and in their cabinets. And I don't think they do it to be malicious. I think they do it as a protection device, as a self-defense mechanism. And the problem, I mean, that's a problem in itself, but the bigger problem becomes they get so used to lying about their condition or the causes of their condition that lying becomes a standard method of speaking in life. So they'll white lie their way through every conversation. and it just becomes a thing to where it becomes so normal that it's commonplace. It's a part of their stories, and they get to the point to where they truly believe what they're saying because they've repeated it so much in their own heads. They physically built neural pathways in their brains that cause them to believe that. The more you think, the more neural pathways get built in your brain. Physical neurons build themselves in your brain. And as you repeat things over and over and over again, they become reality in your head. It's why people say that you need to give yourself confirmation notes in the morning in front of a mirror and say, I'm strong enough. People like me. I'm a good person. I'm going to be successful. Because the more you repeat that, the more it physically embeds itself in your brain until you make that a reality. That's why confirmation bias exists. Or confirmation bias is a debate thing. I got the wrong thing, but that's why self-confidence tips often work, and it's why those mantras matter a lot. Well, they work in reverse too. The more you lie about how things are out of your control, the more you believe that they're out of your control, and eventually you make this reality where things are out of your control. In many of the cases that we have worked with, the kids end up getting the blame for a bunch. Now, in most of the cases, the kids are partially to blame for the maintaining of that mess. But in every video that we do, I get tons and tons of people saying, where were the kids this whole time? Why didn't the kids help? I would never let my mother live that way. And what you have to understand is that in most cases, the kids have been helping the parents their entire lives. That there was never really a case of the kids not attempting to clean up the house or financially supporting the parents when they're going through this stuff. You have to understand that in many of these cases, as the kids were growing up, and those of you who've been through this, feel free to sound off in the comments because this is really, really common. The kids will try to clean up and the parents will scream at them as if they had just tried to murder their pet. They will blame them. In some cases, they will physically abuse them. The parents, oftentimes, even if they don't mean to do this, are emotionally abusive towards their kids because the kid is just trying to help out the family. But in the mind of somebody with hoarding disorder, you're stealing my stuff and you're trying to throw away my memories. And so they fight back. Because the parent is an authority figure, it's extremely easy to do that to their kids because their kids are supposed to do what they tell them. I'm the parent, you're the kid, I give you instructions and you follow them. And so when the kid is trying to clean up, that's going outside of their instructions, and it's easy for them to scream at their kids and emotionally abuse them because the kid has always been the target of their instructions. When I come in or Jason comes in, we're big guys. And when we come in and we're strangers, we can get away with more than what the kids can get away with because it's hard to just scream at a stranger. Now, that's not to say we haven't been yelled at and we haven't been treated like utter garbage, because there have been times where we have. But it's easier for us to do it because I'm a tall dude with a deep voice, and I have no problem looking at somebody and saying, I don't give a crap about these hand towels. When I picked them up off the floor, 100 roaches ran out from underneath them. They're going in the trash. I don't give a crap. I don't care if your grandma gave them to you. Like, it's bad, it's toxic, it needs to go. And I'm looking at overall your entire house, and I know 75% of your stuff has to be thrown away. These hand towels are not one of the things that need to be kept. I can say that and get away with it. Jason is not confrontational, so he just kind of backs off and lets me step in. But we've been the target of people just kind of yelling at us or doing the very passive aggressive thing that he was talking about just a minute ago, where we just bring a rug outside to shake it off and is immediately met with, what are you doing with that? Where are you putting that? Where's that going? Because she's so afraid that we're going to throw it in the dumpster when our intention was just to shake the rug out. And that same thing happened when we brought out those dishes from that house in that giant tub. And as soon as we brought them out the door, she was like, "What are you doing with those?"
Oh, yeah.
We're like, "We're putting it in the car so I can take them home and wash them. Don't worry about it." But she was deathly afraid that we were going to throw those in the dumpster. And we could have. She had so many dishes that we could have thrown those away and it would not even have made a molecule of difference in her life. But again, that's the control issue. But the blame that they lay on their kids and the emotional abuse that kids have had to put up with for decades, eventually you have a breaking point. You say, I can't physically or mentally take this stress anymore. Not from somebody I love. I wouldn't take this from a stranger off the street for a second. I can't take it from my own mother anymore. I can't. And they have to walk away. And it's why in almost every case that we've done, I'd say 90% of the cases we've done, if we're talking to one of the kids of a hoarder, they will tell us the same thing every time. I didn't know it was this bad. I actually haven't been inside this house in X amount of years because the parent stops letting them in. They personally don't want to go in because the smell is putrid. They can't take the trauma of re-seeing the things that they grew up with because they've finally come to terms with this in their head and lived their own life. Re-entering that house is re-entering the battlegrounds that you grew up with, and you're just inviting that trauma to hit you like a tide. And so it's extremely difficult for them. So they just give up and stop going inside. And there's cases of on the show Hoarders where they haven't been inside their parents' house since the 80s. 40 years that these people have not been inside of a house. And when they come in, they just break down. They're like, I didn't know it gotten this bad, but even if it hadn't, even if it was just as bad as it was when I was a kid, I would still have this reaction because it's trauma. It's PTSD. And it's terrifying for a lot of people to go through. So with the whole idea of that denial happening in the parents and shifting blame onto the kids and shifting blame onto just about everything except for themselves, there is a denial that we have dealt with a lot, and you'll see this on the show Hoarders too. And this one actually makes me... So on top of them shifting blame and on top of them having that sort of denial that it's their problem, that they caused this, and in many ways it was out of their control. It's a disorder. They didn't choose to do this. They just couldn't control the disorder. So in ways they're right. It wasn't, don't you ever play with your ball and have fun. There is no fun in this house. Cat. Jonathan Cat. Dr. Katz. Anyway, they have an extreme disconnect about how their pets are being taken care of. And this one makes me mad because there's no easy way to deal with this. In every case of hoarding that we've ever done, most of them have pets in the house, and every instance the pets are neglected. And I had brought this up to somebody recently about the neglect of the pets, and this wasn't even to the person with hoarding disorder themselves. This was to a relative, and that relative got extremely angry and said those pets are not neglected. Those pets they have food and they have water. And I actually got mad at this one and was like, if this is your baseline for care, you're out of your mind. The house that we were working on had cat and dog poop from wall to wall, petrified in every room. We took out over 20 gallons of pet poop. We could fill a 5-gallon bucket 4 times just out of 3 rooms. And we hadn't even gotten to the rest of the house yet. It was toxic. Really toxic.
Every step just crunch, crunch, crunch. Yeah. It was,
And it was every room. It was so bad. The pets weren't taken out regularly. And my rule of thumb, especially with dogs, is about every 3-ish hours, it's nice to take them out. Even if they don't have to go outside, it's good to take them out so they can run a little bit. They can go if they need to go, and then, they can bring them back inside. And the person I was saying that to said, well, I don't even bring my dogs out every 3 hours. I found out later that her house is also covered in a bunch of cat and dog poop or pet poop. I won't go into that heavily. I won't even tell you what house that's from, but it was a problem, a really bad problem. And it's something that we deal with in hoarding disorder regularly, if not every single time. And so the problem ends up becoming most hoarders have an overload of pets that they can't take care of. They're living in a house where they can't take care of themselves. I mean, they're living in a house with, broken sewage, broken water pipes, broken heating from their furnace. They have no air conditioning, or they have so much stuff stacked on their vents that air and heat can't get out of the vents to heat and cool the house. What did I say about your ball, man? What I say about having fun? I just said it a minute ago, and you're playing with it right in my face out of spite. So anyway, that becomes a problem because in most of these cases, if you call an animal welfare check, all the pets are going to go. And as a cleaner, you're like, look, I don't want myself wrapped up in this, but I also don't want the pets to suffer. I mean, in a lot of cases, you'll have a woman who has 10 cats and 5 of them will have open sores or missing fur or an eye that's droopy because the eye's infected. And there's just piles and piles of cat food in these containers so that they can just pour half a bag of cat food in there and then not have to refeed them for days on end. So they can just pour this giant pile of cat food in a bowl and it's heaping, and then they wonder why there's roaches all over their house. And it's like, well, the giant bowl of cat food is providing food for the roaches. The mice are having Thanksgiving. They're having mouse Thanksgiving from all this food, and you already have a mouse infestation. Also, cats are finicky. They tend to not like to eat stale food in the same way that I don't like to eat stale food. So they'll eat the top layer off, and then they'll eat a little bit less and a little bit less until you go down to the point where the food is just getting kind of rancid and stale and gross. They just don't have that skill set. They think food is there and water's there, therefore my pets are taken care of. And it's like, I wouldn't bring a child in this house because there's so much waste everywhere.
Speaking of that too, I remember very well, it was like a dog hoarder house that we did like 2 or 3 years ago. The kitchen floor was just saturated in dog crap. There's kids were living in that house at one point. And it makes you feel so bad because you can also look at the kitchen door that leads to outside, and it's just pawed at so hard that it's just the wood starting to like split. And
yeah, because they've just gotten up there and started doing this to it because they wanted to go outside, and the owner couldn't get up to take them out or couldn't be bothered to take them out. This is a house no longer lived in, and there were multiple dog cages in the kitchen. I think that we found 6 cages, I think. Yeah. And inside each one of them were huge piles of dog poop where they didn't let the dogs out. So the dogs just pooped in the cages where they slept. There was also a leash that was nailed or screwed to the floor that was about this long, maybe 1.5 feet long. So one of the dogs were just bound in a 1 foot by, a 1 foot radius. But yeah, it's like what do you do when you come into these houses to help out and you've got so much of this stuff? The only thing you can do is talk to their relatives and say, if there wasn't an effort to being made to get this person's house fixed and clean, I would have to call APS, which is Adult Protective Services, and an animal welfare check. And you have to leave that in the kid's hands to say, she can't take care of this many pets. This is not my place to step in here, but somebody has to step in. And if somebody doesn't, then an anonymous call may have to be made to say they've got too much. They can't take care of themselves. They definitely can't take care of 8 cats, and 6 dogs or whatever. And that happens over and over and over in a lot of our houses that we've done. It's sad because the person who has hoarding disorder thinks that they are saving and helping the pets. They've oftentimes rescued them. They've oftentimes taken in strays. In many cases, they may even get them to the vet on time and everything, but it's just they're not providing them a clean, safe environment that is healthy for the pets to be living in. Because when that waste breaks down, it produces ammonia. Gaseous ammonia in the air attaches itself to moisture, and it basically liquefies organic material. That's why it's so good to clean an oven with ammonia. It liquefies hard food. And so it does the same things to your lungs, just on a much slower level. And it's why in many cases, a lot of the people who we help are on oxygen and don't realize that their living conditions are the things contributing to or exacerbating their already existing respiratory illnesses. Many times when we get a house even half cleaned up, the people will tell us, I've coughed like half as much as I normally do. It's like, well, yeah, we removed a bunch of ammonia in your house and left you with oxygen in there instead of ammonia and sulfur and just the nastiness that gets released from decaying material.
It makes me feel so bad for the people too. Like from time to time, like it's just like the conditions that they put themselves into. I know they can't help it either. It's just that they settle, and it's so sad to see. Like using a puppy pad on the toilet or not showering ever. It's just,
and that's happened a lot. I mean, and I would say in 20 to 30% of the houses that we have here on the channel, you can tell the person hasn't taken a shower in months. Or in many cases, like they're having to go to somebody else's house to shower. They haven't done the dishes in so long that the silverware in the bottom of their sink has dissolved. It hasn't just rusted, it's dissolved as if it were sitting in acid. And that is just a reality that many of them have to live in, and they have gotten to the point to where it's become their normal, and eventually they live in it so long that it's not even something they question anymore. It's just how they exist. And the idea of taking even $200 to fix a simple plumbing issue is beyond what they're capable of thinking. They're like, well, I could use that $200 for food, even though their house has $5,000 worth of wasted food in it. And that's the irony of a lot of these hoarders that do food hoarding is, well, I buy things because they're on sale, so I get a bigger deal. You're like, yeah, but you end up having to throw them in the dumpster because they rot. So you haven't saved anything. You've thrown money away. You may have paid $1.50 for this thing that normally cost $1.75, so you saved yourself a quarter. But no, you actually have just given $1.50 to the fiery pit of hell because this thing you just bought rotted, now you're having to throw it away. So the idea of a good sale becomes you just throwing money away and losing money instead of saving money. So there's this disconnect from logic there. And we even see that in the way that they've attempted to clean in the past. So in many houses we have, and this is so common, I expect this in every house that we do. They'll try to clean on their own, but the disorder is so powerful that it doesn't allow them to actually know how to do the basic things that you and I know how to do. Like, in their mind, they'll take a bunch of stuff and put it in a box, close the box, and stack it up. But when we open those boxes in order to figure out what needs to be thrown away, we will find like a bar of soap, an antique vase wrapped in newspapers, a handful of junk mail and credit card like offers. We'll find toy cars along with half-spent candles and a stick of deodorant that's completely used up. It's just random stuff that they've taken a handful of, thrown it into a box, closed it, and stacked it, and to them that's organized. Whereas when we start doing it, we're like, oh, we found this antique vase. Let's put this over to the side and start a box for antiques or vases or antique vases, one of those three groups. And then we'll slowly fill that up over time. We'll find a bar of soap and say, well, this is still in the box, it's good. Let's start a box for bathroom stuff. And that idea to them is foreign. And it happens so frequently that we totally expect it, which is why we open old boxes when we're doing all this stuff. because we can't trust that they have taken smart, healthy steps to store items. And it blows my mind every time I see it, because you can see the disconnect from logic, the disconnect from reality, and the 100% inability to organize things in the way that we teach, say, 4-year-olds, to say, let's put all the circles together when we're cleaning up our toys. Like in, say, kindergarten, they'll be, let's put all the circles together. Where's the square? Let's put all the squares together, and we'll make a puzzle out of this. That thing doesn't exist within the mind of most people with hoarding disorder. So going back to the control issue, this is something that's really difficult to deal with, because in many cases they want to run the show. They want to say, first I want to clean out this room, then I want to clean out this room. And as cleaners, we know that we have to do things in a specific order. And our order tends to be the kitchen first, no matter what, because it's the hardest room in the house to clean, and it gives us an open space once we're done cleaning it to put things from one room into the kitchen as a temporary storage place. So in other words, if I'm going to clean this house and it's all hoarded, I'm going to clean this kitchen area first. Then when we move to the dining room, we can take a whole bunch of stuff that we don't know what to do with and put it into the now clean kitchen. Then clean up the dining room, then go back and get the stuff out of the kitchen and start putting it back into the dining room so we can organize it. Then whatever's left over that's not functional or decoration, we can start boxing up or throwing away or whatever. But we have to do things in a very specific order. After that, we tend to go to the next biggest room that they need, which will either be the living room or the bedroom. Because again, it opens up more storage, and it's also a place that they frequent. And so we either have to say we need to give them a good place to sleep that's not on the couch, or if they're in the living room constantly, it's like, all right, they're surrounded with dog poop and nastiness and dirty dishes and everything, so let's go back into the kitchen or the living room and clear it out. So we have to kind of do this as we go. And if they step in on with their control issues, sometimes it is a case to where you have to step up and say, look, your way is what led to you living like this. It doesn't work. Your way has failed. And it's failed you for a decade or more, 2 decades, 3 decades. It has caused rifts in your family that may not be repairable. It's time to try another way. Let's try our way, since we have experience doing this with hundreds and hundreds of houses. Let's use our expertise to get you into a shape that you need to be in. And the problem a lot of the times is the people who are watching this don't realize that control and that disorder is so heavy. They think that the cleaning of the house itself is the issue. Like we should just go in and throw away everything and then make sure somebody comes over every day to make sure that they're not, going back to hoarding. And it's just not how you treat that disorder. It will throw them. There are cases of people offing themselves after having somebody cleaning something majorly like that without them in control. But to the person with hoarding disorder, they don't want this to happen. They want a clean house and everything, but the disorder is making them think, I want to keep everything, I just want it cleaner. And it just doesn't work that way. It's like an alcoholic who says, I'm tired of the alcohol ruining my life and my relationships and my jobs and ruining my entire life. So I want to finally make this change to get rid of this problem in my life. And you're saying, okay, step 1 is to get rid of the alcohol. Then they step in and go, well, no, don't get rid of the alcohol. I want the alcohol. I want to continue drinking. I just don't want to be an alcoholic anymore. And trying to explain to them that this is why you're an alcoholic, because you have this thing up here that is a psychological or a neuropsychological disorder that causes the alcoholism, and the feeding it alcohol is what that disorder wants. And you cannot get out of your alcoholism or move on with your life until you get rid of the thing that's feeding that. So you have to get rid of the booze. With a hoarder, it's the same thing. They oftentimes want to get out of this nightmare, this hell that they put themselves into, but they don't want to get rid of any of this stuff. It's like, I want to cure my hoarding disorder, which there is no cure for that, but I want to cure my hoarding disorder, but I don't want to get rid of any of the stuff. Oh, and also I'm going to go to a garage sale this week, and I found all these things that somebody else had thrown in the dumpster, but I can save them and turn them into stuff. And it's like, oh man, you've got to get rid of the stuff. You have to. Like, it's physically impossible for you to keep the stuff and have a healthy life at the same time.
Yeah, we used to have a client that was a hoarder as well, and it was just, there was one room that she wanted done every week or every other week, and I would offer to do it, and she would say, oh, why don't we do that next time? And then it would just keep repeating itself over and over again.
Was that the woman who saved all the Scentsy stuff? Or no, that was the one. That was the clothing one. Yeah. So the woman he's talking about had enough clothing to clothe a church, and it was in multiple rooms. And in order to get her unhoarded, we had to take the hoards out of all these other rooms, pack them all up into boxes, and move the hoard into one big room. So it ended up being boxes from floor to ceiling, and they were all clothes and Christmas decorations. And she was determined that she was going to go through those and pare them down. I sat down with a box with her one day. We went through about, I would say, 25 shirts, and she got rid of one. And then she couldn't take it anymore. And there were another 200 boxes to go through. And so they do what Jason was talking about, where they put things off. They will get to it eventually. And then when you say, all right, well, let's do that now, they'll say, no, let's do it next week. So next week will come around and they'll say, no, I don't have it in me today to do that. Let's go ahead and do that next week. And it just continues being put off forever. And that's a major issue with hoarding disorder that we see across the board as well. Now, one thing that I found out, because this is not in line with my experience, is that men tend to hoard more than women. And in some studies, they hoard more by about a ratio of 2 to 1. They tend to hoard twice as often as women. But if we've done 200 houses here on the channel, I think we've done 5 who were men and 195 who were women. And the studies show that women tend to ask for help, whereas men tend not to. And I think that's also another control issue. Traditional women in the Midwest specifically tend to be more traditional, and they tend to give up control easier. They're more submissive than men are. And so the men in this area, especially when you're talking about older women, they tend to be able to say, okay, I've had enough, please help me. Whereas the men will be like, I can handle this on my own. I don't need anybody from the outside coming in. Men tend to hoard things like lumber, scrap projects from construction things they've done, tools, electronics, shoes, clothes, and food. Women tend to hoard things that are a bit more aesthetic, clothing, shoes, handbags, jewelry, food as well. And then they tend to hoard things that are oddly usable, like plastic bags. We've had several houses where we have pulled out thousands of just old Walmart bags, and if they see you throwing them away, they'll say, well, I use that to change the cat litter. And as a cleaner, we're thinking, one, no you don't, because we just changed the cat litter that hasn't been changed in a couple of years. It had petrified cat poop in it. And two, you're never going to go through 2,000 Walmart bags. You're just not. These are so old that they're brittle. They break when you touch them.
Oh, yeah.
They're yellow from age. Like, you're never going to use those. And you're going to bring more home the next time you shop. So let's get rid of the old nasty ones, and then you can just continue collecting your new Walmart bags that you're also not going to use. So it's frustrating for us. And one of the reasons we wanted to talk about this subject is because we could put that front and center, but we don't. We want to keep people anonymous. And when you see shows like Hoarders, doing this, I think they're trying to shed light on how severe this disorder is and the ways it can manifest in people just completely exploding on strangers, friends, family. It shows the illogical disorganization in their mind, their disconnect from reality. And I think that's important for people to know, because this is not just a case of walking in and cleaning up something and leaving. It's not just a case of where were the kids. The kids were likely there the whole time. The kids were oftentimes emotionally abused. The kids sometimes were physically abused. Sometimes the kids themselves are hoarders and don't understand how to help to begin with. There is a genetic component to hoarding. In fact, I think there's 2 to 4 genes that they've discovered over the last few years that are prevalent in people with hoarding disorder. Those questions, and when I see them in the comments, and those people who are searching for blame, I think you need to research what hoarding disorder actually is. There are tons and tons of articles on it. And I think that if you're searching for blame in issues like this, you genuinely don't understand what hoarding disorder actually is, where it comes from, what triggers it. I don't think you understand the compulsion that's in there. It's like trying to stop the worst hiccups of your life. They just keep coming and coming and you can't stop them. And I think that laying blame on people is one of the most unproductive things you can do for you personally to understand where these people are coming from. I'm not asking for your pity for these people. I'm asking you for your empathy, to understand that there are people with brains that are severely, they're mentally ill. They're severely mentally ill. And this doesn't get fixed by somebody saying, well, if that was my mom, I would have cleaned the whole thing. You have no clue what you're talking about. None. There are some people who exist who have been able to do that. They are an extreme rarity. And if you're one of those people who has pulled that off, that is awesome. And I'm glad you were able to do it. The other 99% of cases do not operate that way. And I just want you to understand that there are things that go on behind the scenes in all of these houses that we don't show on camera for a reason. And there are reasons that hoarders did. Yes, ratings was one of them. They had to have ratings in order to have a show, but I think they did a good job at showing the ugly, dark sides of hoarding disorder, along with, what the family goes through when they're trying to help these people. And I think that's an important thing to know. It's why we're talking to you about this today, because we do experience those things from time to time. So, anything else, you piece of crap?
No.
All right. Well, for those of you, you son of a bitch, you could have killed me with that. For those of you who don't know, we are shooting toward 1 million subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Last I checked, we had 741,000 subscribers, so we are closing in on 3/4 of the way there. I really want to get that gold plaque so I can shove it in Jason's face and show him how much better I am than he is. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And there's also a members section. You just hit the join button for that. That's a paid membership. Do not do that unless you can afford it. I don't want anyone following us on the join members only section unless they can afford it. But for those of you who are members, I will see you guys this coming Wednesday. For everybody else, I'll see you next weekend. Later.